Most people underestimate how human connection actually begins. It rarely starts with words. It starts with something far more subtle, something most people never consciously notice. A shift in posture, a slight change in tone, a small adjustment in breathing. And in many cases, the other person responds without realizing why. This silent coordination between two individuals is known as mirroring. It is one of the most fundamental mechanisms behind human interaction, and yet, almost nobody is taught how it works. When you observe two people having a natural and comfortable conversation, something interesting happens. Their movements begin to align. One leans forward, the other follows. One slows their speech, the other adapts. One smiles slightly, and the other mirrors that expression moments later. This is not coincidence. It is not imitation in the conscious sense. It is coordination happening beneath awareness. Mirroring is the brain's way of reducing social uncertainty. When two people behave similarly, the nervous system interprets the situation as safe. Familiarity increases. Defensive behavior decreases. And trust begins to form. This process is deeply rooted in neuroscience. Inside the brain, there are specialized neural circuits often referred to as mirror neurons. These neurons activate not only when you perform an action yourself, but also when you observe someone else performing that same action. In simple terms, your brain does not only watch other people, it simulates them internally. This simulation creates an internal model of understanding, and that model becomes the foundation of empathy. When you see someone raise their hand, your brain partially replicates that movement. When you observe someone smile, your emotional system responds as if there is a shared experience. This is why emotions can be contagious in social environments. Laughter spreads through a room. Stress can also spread. Calmness can stabilize a group. All of this is influenced by subtle synchronization processes in human behavior. The discovery of mirror neurons in the 1990s, particularly through research on primates, changed the way scientists understand social cognition. Researchers observed that certain neurons in the brains of monkeys fired both when they performed an action and when they watched another monkey perform the same action. This finding suggested that understanding others is not purely intellectual. It is embodied. It is physical. It is neurological. Human beings do not just interpret behavior. They internally reproduce it at a subtle level. This is one of the reasons why social interaction feels natural in some cases and difficult in others. When synchronization occurs, interaction flows effortlessly. When it does not occur, communication feels forced or disconnected. This brings us to real-life situations where mirroring plays a crucial role. The interviewer is not only listening to your words, they are also unconsciously evaluating your presence, your posture, your tone, your emotional alignment. If the interviewer leans slightly forward, a natural candidate response might involve a similar shift in engagement. Not a direct imitation, but a gradual alignment of energy. This creates the perception of rapport. Rapport is not something that is declared. It is something that is felt. In social interactions such as friendships, mirroring also plays a silent role. When two people begin to connect, their gestures often start to reflect each other. One person touches their face, and later the other does something similar. One person relaxes their shoulders, and the other follows. These patterns are not planned. They emerge naturally when comfort is present. In romantic contexts, mirroring becomes even more significant. During a first date, both individuals are subconsciously scanning for signals of compatibility. They are not analyzing consciously, but their nervous systems are constantly evaluating safety and alignment. It suggests understanding without explanation. This reduces psychological distance. And psychological distance is one of the main barriers to connection. In negotiations, mirroring becomes a strategic advantage when used correctly. Experienced communicators often adjust their speaking pace, tone, and posture to match the other party. This does not mean copying. It means aligning communication styles. When people feel understood, they become more open to collaboration. Resistance decreases, trust increases, and agreements become easier to reach. However, it is important to understand something critical. Mirroring is not about control. It is not about manipulation. It is about alignment. When used incorrectly, it becomes noticeable and artificial. When used correctly, it disappears into natural interaction. The goal is not to be seen as someone who is copying others. The goal is to become someone who is easy to connect with. To apply mirroring effectively, observation is the first step. Before adjusting anything, attention must be directed outward. Most people do the opposite. They focus on how they are being perceived. But effective communication begins with awareness of the other person, their posture, their rhythm, their emotional state. Once observation becomes natural, subtle alignment can begin. Timing is essential. Immediate imitation feels mechanical. Delayed reflection feels natural. If someone crosses their arms, you do not respond instantly. Then your body gradually adopts a similar level of openness or closure, depending on comfort. Energy matching is another essential principle. Mirroring does not require identical behavior. It requires proportional behavior. If someone is energetic, you increase your expressiveness. If someone is calm, you reduce intensity. This creates balance in interaction. Another important dimension is voice synchronization. People naturally adjust their speaking speed when they are engaged. Fast speech can slow down. Slow speech can become more fluid. Tone can become more aligned. This creates auditory harmony between speakers. Beyond physical behavior, mirroring also occurs emotionally. When you reflect someone's emotional state through acknowledgement and validation, you create psychological safety. For example, repeating or paraphrasing what someone has said is a form of cognitive mirroring. It signals that their thoughts have been received accurately. This reduces misunderstanding and builds trust. In social anxiety situations, mirroring can serve a stabilizing function. Many individuals experience anxiety because they become internally focused. They monitor their own behavior excessively. They analyze how they are perceived in real time. This creates cognitive overload. By shifting attention outward, mirroring changes the focus of awareness. Instead of self-monitoring, attention is directed toward the other person. This reduces internal pressure and improves presence. Presence is one of the most important factors in social ease. When someone is fully present, they appear more confident, even without deliberate effort. This is why mirroring is often associated with improved social performance. Not because it changes identity, but because it reduces internal noise. Over time, with practice, mirroring becomes automatic. It is no longer a technique. It becomes a natural extension of social awareness. At that point, communication becomes less about effort and more about flow. You stop thinking about what to do, and instead, you simply respond to the interaction as it unfolds. Human connection is often described as something mysterious or abstract, but beneath that perception lies a set of observable patterns: synchronization, alignment, resonance. Mirroring is one of the clearest expressions of these patterns. It is a reminder that communication is not only verbal, it is embodied, it is continuous, and it is deeply rooted in biology. When two people are aligned in conversation, there is often no need for explanation. Understanding emerges without effort, and that is what most people interpret as chemistry. In reality, it is coordination, a silent agreement between nervous systems, a temporary synchronization of behavior and perception. The next time you engage in a conversation, there is no need to force anything. Observe first. Allow interaction to develop naturally. Notice rhythm. Notice posture. Notice tone. And if alignment begins to emerge, it will not need to be manufactured. It will happen on its own. And in that moment, communication becomes something far more powerful than words. It becomes connection.